Hey everyone, welcome to the new YouTube channel for Peanut Press Books. I am your host, Julius Motel, a photographer and writer here in New York City. For those who don't know, Peanut Press is an independent photo book publisher started by David Carroll and Ashley Stoll. Now, this channel will feature conversations with photographers from all over the world. Now, the first up is Richard Bram, a longtime photographer who got his start photographing the Kentucky Derby. He's been a member of the street photography collective In Public for the last 15 years, and he has a new book out called Richard Bram New York, which is a collection of his street photographs in New York City from the last 10 years. I first saw these photos at Photoville at the Leica tent where he was giving a talk, and what struck me about them was their sharp sense of humor and how they seemed to capture both the calm and the chaos of New York City, which isn't an easy thing to do. And we'll talk about all of that and more. Welcome to the show. So this book, Richard Bram New York, I'd seen a couple of copies at Peanut Press headquarters.
Right. Yes.
Looks lovely. And the images, both in what I saw in the book and then hearing you talk about them at the Leica tent at Photoville, the thing that struck me about almost all of them was the sharp wit. I mean, these are,
thank you.
They're funny. I mean, they're funny images. It's not often that a photograph can make you laugh. But, I mean, as evidenced by the audience at the Leica tent, there was a lot of laughter going on. And
I believe in that. The world's way too serious.
Yeah,
you know? God knows everyone takes themselves way too seriously, and we need a lot more laughter these days.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how much has humor played a role in your photography? Is it something you're conscious of when you're shooting, or does it come out later when you see the images? Probably
a little of both. I mean, some things will strike me funny. Like there's one picture that's, it's one of the few still lives, I guess, of the graffito running into the thing. It's like, I didn't open the door. There it was. It's like, oh my God, how can you not laugh at that?
Yeah.
And other things, it's like I'll see something, I'll take it, and it'll strike me funny when I look at it in the contact sheet, like the guy clutching the American Girl doll in Times Square.
Yeah.
And he just likes a very, very sober guy, like the last sort of man who would be clutching a doll. And I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
And at first I just saw man with doll, photographed man with doll.
Right.
But later it became funny.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then there are other pictures which are kind of the opposite. At first it's funny, but the more you look at it and you go, oh, that's not funny at all. Like the couple having that really nasty little moment in front of the store with a skeleton.
Right, yeah.
That it looks funny at first. It's like, oh, he's made a little joke of the couple with a skeleton. And when you look and it's like, ooh, there's some real nastiness going on there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I as I said, the world needs a good joke. I mean, I was raised with Groucho Marx and the Marx Brothers in my house. We loved recorded comedy as a kid.
Yeah.
But there's also, for me, a picture that really works. It's got to have more than one level. Right. Yeah, there's a joke, but most of the time there's more.
Yeah.
Something else going on, too.
Yeah. And part of what, from what I understand, what distinguishes the work in this book from your previous work is that it's all in color.
Yeah.
And as you had said, and as I have learned in my own practice, and as a lot of photographers have said, color is a lot harder to get right.
You bet.
And I'm curious.
So much that can go wrong.
Oh, completely. And I'm curious, in having made the switch from black and white to color, was there a period in which you were sort of getting the swing of things with color? Like, did you hit your stride at a certain point? Like, what was the transition like?
I'd say that's a really good way to put it, Julius. I mean, I've shot color all my life. I was a commercial photographer. I did big public events. It was a black and white camera and a camera with slide film.
Yeah.
So, you have the two, and they're, but in my personal work, I always did black and white because as much as anything else, I could print it myself. I never learned color dark.
Okay.
And because I was dabbling in the gallery world early and as a commercial photographer, I was making prints all the time. So the print means something to me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't print it. But when I joined In Public, a couple of years in, guys said, "How come you're not shooting in color, Bram? Shoot some color, Bram. Shoot color." So I dabbled with color negative. I shot some, but I ended up going back to black and white. And then I got my first digital camera, professional DSLR in 04.
Okay.
Because a client told me, I don't need film and processing, Bram. All I need are JPEGs. And I went, oh, of course. And I bought a camera. But then I came to New York in 05, and I only brought that camera with me. And I shot color here in New York on a brief trip here from London. Right. And I got a couple of good images in the course of that trip. I was here for about a week. Walking around, and 2 of them are in the book, and they're the earliest pictures in the book. There's 2 or 3 from 2005. But then I went back to black and white again. And when I moved to New York, I was still working in black and white. The first really good pictures I took here after I moved here in 08 are still in black and white, like the guy falling in the rain on Wall Street, which you may have seen, or a couple of other things around the financial crisis.
Right,
But I just wasn't shooting color until maybe 2010, when I started going out shooting more color, and as you said, getting my feet wet, if you would, feeling more comfortable with it. And then a little later that year, I bought the M9 came out, and I bought an M9, and it was the first, because I'm used to using little rangefinders on the street. So finally, there was a color camera. Digital color camera that was small, unobtrusive, and worked the way I like to work on the street.
And what is that? What is the way you like to work on the street?
Quiet. I just have the camera with me all the time. I don't like a big honking DSLR. Even if I have a prime lens on it, it's still a relatively large camera. Not that the M9 is light, but it's small.
Sure.
And then I just began to hit it pretty hard, and then I said, okay. And also, one more thing, I've been feeling stale
lately,
then.
Okay.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9. Even I was feeling like, I've shot this before. I'm not really interested. It's like, I've taken this picture already 5 times. I don't, and. So how do you wake yourself up? You take a new challenge. I'm not a project guy. I didn't say, I'm going to set a project and do that. It's just not how I work. But switching to color did it. It's like, whoa, oh man, this is such a great picture, but damn, there's that fluorescent orange jacket in the background. We had talked about this in the speech, and it's true, because then the eye goes in the rectangle to that orange, and whatever's happening in the foreground, you're not looking at it. It still keeps going to the background.
Right.
So anyway, it was as much tool driven as anything else, I think, is a good way to put it.
Sure. Now, do you find that so the images in this book, they go from 2005 to 2015 thereabouts. Do you find that your opinions about your own images has changed over time? Say you took a photo in 2005 and you didn't think much of it then, but maybe
that happens. That happens. I mean, I'll go back and look through things and think, oh my goodness, how could I have let that go? Sure, but that's the process I've been going through my whole life as a photographer. Things I was really proud of 10, 15 years ago, I'd look at now and I go, eh. And then you go through an old contact sheet and you go, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I kept thinking I needed to print that. Right. And you print it and you go, yeah. Why have I let that go for 15 years? But the other thing is, the work itself has changed. The content of the work has changed. Because I'm in New York now, and New York feels different. I mean, the stuff I'm sure that the photographs you made in Istanbul have a different feeling to them, even if they're the same subjects, from the stuff you might do here.
Yeah.
Because the cities feel different, and the emotional ambiance of the city is different. So New York is confrontational. It's crowded. It's nervous. It's, boom in the face. Yeah. And I think the pictures I took in here, excuse me, good heavens, are the same. Mm-hmm. They're not warm and fuzzy. They're not romantic, pretty much. And whereas London felt very romantic to me.
Yeah. So how have these two cities, because you've spent a lot of time in both, how have they shaped your photography over time? Maybe the way you shoot.
Well, I think it's just the mood of the place itself and the way it's and the impact of that upon me.
Right.
As I said, London, especially when I first got there, I mean, my camera was how I came to grips with living in a foreign country, but it seemed romantic. It was intriguing. It was different. It's lower. It's less crowded. It's just as many people, but it's more spread out, so you're not quite as on top of each other.
Right.
And it's calmer, quieter, and cleaner than New York, which of course makes one laugh, but it's still true. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm back on the topic now. I just started.
That's fine.
But anyway, so I think the pictures from there are calmer. They're more romantic. There's more obvious jokes, which I've gotten away from pretty much in my photography. The standard tropes of street photography, like person against the sign and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I don't do that much anymore. I've done it. I've done really good ones. Now it's become a cliche, but 15 years ago, it wasn't that much of a cliche.
Right.
And also, again, that's another thing that's hard to do well. Everyone does it. Joel Meyerowitz called them warm-up exercises.
Yeah.
And so I think what I do here, the images are much more ambiguous. They're more complex. I think I've gotten away from a lot of the things. And of course, the question you asked is, do I go back and find things? Sure, I still do. Yeah. And then sometimes I will start cutting stuff that I was really attached to. Right. But I look at it now and I go, oh, yeah, but what I'm attached to is what I was feeling at the time, right. What I was hearing, what I was seeing, who was with me. Yeah. But is that in the picture? Right. No, it's not in the picture.
Yeah.
So, and I can now cut that. With time and emotional distance, it becomes a lot easier to delete photos.
Oh, yeah. No, sure. Now, so how did you, one of the hardest things I find is learning to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
When it comes to photography.
Yes.
It's not easy. And it seems that you've gotten to a place where you have a good sense of things and you can cut cleaner maybe than you might have a while ago. And I'm curious, how did you learn to do that? Because it's not an easy thing to pick up.
No, and especially in personal work.
Oh.
But it comes out of having been a commercial photographer for 15, 20, 30 years. 15 intensely, and then after that, when you get back from a public event and you've got 50 boxes of slides that you have to go through in a day and a half, you learn to edit really fast. You lay them out on the table, yes, boom, boom, boom. You throw them out. You don't keep them around. You just fill up the wastebasket. Yeah. And, I got two that are really close. Back, forth, that one, boom.
Yeah.
You don't look back, and it's because I had to. And that's the basic editing skills there. It's just because of running huge amounts of film.
Yeah.
And then now when it's your personal work, it's a little trickier. It's easy to see that 90% of it's garbage.
Sure.
And it's not useful. But that 10% is hard. And then the 5, then half of that, then half of that, then half of that. And that's when it gets really tough. And that's what was hard about putting the book together.
Yeah.
Was editing from all those frames down to 51 pictures. And there are still 6, 8 that I wish were in the book that I think would work. But, it's okay.
Yeah.
I wish they were there, but do you know when you look through the book about the other 50 pictures? The other 6, 8 pictures? Of course you don't.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. And if I really, really felt strongly about it, we would have found a way to put it in. But I said, that's okay. I'm attached to it, but if I desperately need this, is this a signature piece that is my legacy? Well, no. So.
And it seems like, based on what I've read and what I've heard you say, the seeds of the work that drives you now were taken in, I guess you call them the outtakes from the commercial work you did, say it like the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you remember if there were moments early on where you saw an image you took that wasn't for the client, where you went, there's something there.
Yep. Oh, sure. There's a couple of those. One was photographing. I was looking for it the other day and I can't find it. I was photographing a banquet, a speaker for a company, and it was a banquet, and it was really boring, and people have eaten and they're nodding off, and the guy's droning on, and I took the nice picture of the guy, talking into his microphone and smiling and making a little gesture, and that was the job. But then I got to eat too, so I'm sitting down at the table in the back, and I'm looking at people, and there's some of them like this, and it's like they're out of focus is the speaker, and someone just dead asleep in the front. And and then it's like, I love it. Yeah, and that's where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah, and you made the switch to photography after it was not your first career.
No, it's about my fourth.
Your fourth. So what are, I guess in brief, like the past lives of Richard Bram?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you, in my first incarnation, well, I got a master's degree in political science and liberal arts. I studied a lot of art history, theater history, architecture history while I was getting a political science degree. Then I got a master's in international business from the Thunderbird School outside of Phoenix. It's a very prominent international business school. And because I wanted to travel the world, and I got a travel bug and said I want to do this, but I couldn't figure out how to do it unless someone else was paying for it. So I said, oh, well, I'll just go into international business and they'll send me to exotic places and I'll get to live there and do this and that. Except, well, right out of grad school, that's not really how it works, especially if you were me and had no real work experience. I went high school, college, graduate school, so I had all this education but didn't know anything. So I got hired by one firm as an export documentation clerk. I mean, they called it, had a long title, but that's essentially what it was. And I got laid off from there when they cut the program I was working with. And one of the other companies I worked with picked me up, moved me up to Pennsylvania. I worked there for a year and a half, was fired for really being bored and not fitting in very well, which is true. Looking back on it, I would have fired me too. But then I was on the dole for a while. But that's where I began to take pictures, and I was encouraged a bit by the local camera shop, York, Pennsylvania, where, I just took pretty pictures. There was nothing deep, nothing profound here. Just, and they put a couple up in the case, and I just began to take more pictures. But I didn't study. I was just, as I said before, a happy snapper. And then finally, after being on the dole for quite a while and having all sorts of odd jobs just to keep, eating, I got picked up by Wrangler Children's Wear as a clothing salesman, traveling because my father was in the clothing business. So through family friends, it is, and that moved me to Louisville, Kentucky in 1980, where I traveled Kentucky and Indiana selling Wrangler Children's Wear for about 3.5 years. And that ultimately didn't end so well. And there I was in January of 1984, unemployed again, 32 years old. What do I want to do? And I've been hanging out with some photographers who I'd met, and Louisville had a really good photo scene and still does. And it was a cheap place to live, so you could get along. And I got some encouragement, and I said, okay, I'll be a photographer, not knowing what I was doing. Had no idea what that really meant as far as earning a living. I just knew I had to make some money, and I had to make it quick. And so I started taking, basic PR pictures for little organizations like the Public Library System and the orchestra's board member cocktail parties, because I liked that, and I knew a couple of people involved with that. And then one thing leads to another, because in a small town, it's the same people on the boards of everything. And they see you, you're doing this job, you're presentable. I wore a tie, I could speak nicely. Oh, hello, Mrs. So-and-so. Good to see you, Mr. So-and-so. it's acting. It's assuming the role necessary for the job, um, and uh, and so. But from that, I got to meet people, and I got to meet more people,
Mm-hmm.
and having a library as a client meant that I went to the library all the time. And I pretty much went through the entire photographic collection of the Louisville Free Public Library system. I was at all the branches and the main library 3-4 times a week, pulling books off of shelves,
Right.
and just sitting down in the aisles, just sucking it all up. And I took a course at a local rental darkroom on how to process black and white film, because I'd never done it. I'd never made print. And with encouragement and help, I got the basics down while I was starving. But, I wanted to do it. Yeah. And that was the difference. And so my other early experiences helped me at least present myself so I could get more work.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. And you had mentioned getting a degree in art history, and I remember this from your Photoville talk too.
Mm-hmm.
That you were constantly cross-referencing some of your pictures with classical paintings, and
yeah.
I'm curious how much of art history and classic works of art have informed your approach photographically to what you take pictures of.
Tremendously. Yeah. Huge. I mean, it's my background. That's my visual background as much as those photography books.
Right.
Because at first, of course, I was drawn to people who also spent their lives going to museums, like Kertész and Alfred Eisenstadt and Cartier-Bresson, people who came out of, the traditional Western art background.
Right.
I go to museums all the time. I mean, yesterday I met up with Jonathan Blaustein. We went to the Brooklyn Museum and spent a good part of a couple of hours up in the American art collection and just looking at paintings from the very beginnings in the 1700s up to today.
Yeah.
And just staring at them. And do I consciously imitate a painting?
No, sure, of course.
But that's how you know what a good picture is.
Right.
You absorb the tropes and the fundamentals. You have to know the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that'll help you, even if you're doing random pictures of strangers on the street in a fraction of a second, instinctually. When you edit the stuff, you'll see one that comes out. Why does it come out? I'm not sure, but it all just seems to feel right in the rectangle, and that's how you know. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm curious, how much has the photographic community played a role in your growth as a photographer? Because you're a member of In Public and have been for
the beginning,
since the beginning, 15, 16 years.
Yeah, we were founded in 2000, and I was like the 5th member, along with a whole bunch of people who sort of appeared in 01.
Yeah.
It's been tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, the photographic community in the early days in Louisville, I have a couple of very good friends who really helped me figure out what I was doing early on. And I've gotten a lot of help from other photographers, and I'm really grateful for it, and I want to return it as much as I can to others. And then In Public was great, because then I really got back into pull different books off the shelves again. And we critique each other. We would look, especially the early days, we would look at each other's pictures on our private message board and really critique each other pretty savagely, but with respect.
Yeah.
It never was personal. It was like, you didn't get this one. And here's, why? What do you mean? Nope, doesn't work. And argue about it, but then we'd meet up at the pub and sit, and tell each other stories, as we still do, as opposed to having these Flickr message boards where people just rip each other apart, and it's all really personal, and it's all ego and all that sort of stuff, which I never got into. I never was on Flickr. I have no. But to me, that's not useful. You're not going to learn anything that way. And I always want to make myself better.
Yeah.
I'm not looking. Yeah, I have my viewpoint and this and that, and I got an ego too. Let's not kid ourselves.
Sure.
But I don't feel that I have all the answers, and everything I say is law.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Right.
And there's a lot of approaches, and some stuff I may not like, but I'll respect it.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you learn to talk about photography in a considered way? Because what I mean is, like, you talk about critiquing, like in the early days of In Public, you'd sit down in your message boards and you'd talk about each other's work. Like, it's not enough to be able to take good pictures. You also have to be able to have sort of a visual language to talk about pictures in a way. And I'm curious, how did you learn to do that?
I don't know. I think it just by experience, and some of it came out of doing the commercial work and working with other people, and we'd be helping each other,
Right.
you know, pick pictures for the slide presentation that we have to put together for tomorrow night with 3 photographers, and we're looking at each other's work and saying, this one will go in here. What about this? Yeah, it's a nice picture. It doesn't work. You know, it won't work here. And I don't know. It's a certain... I don't know if I'm answering the question now.
That's okay.
But I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And I internalized the language.
Yeah.
Because I read all the time.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, you study and you learn the vocabulary, and you try not to. And at first you get caught up in the cliches, and then you hopefully stop using them when you realize that you've said that same thing 20 times. It's like, oh, well, that's boring now. Yeah. We all have our stock speeches, and I have mine, but it's like, yeah, it's not. And I've also been lucky enough to meet a lot of really great photographers who've given me some terrific advice along the way. I mean, and one of the other things from color is in early 2011, I'd made this decision. I was working with the M9, and I went to Derby. It was the Format Festival, which was like the Woodstock of street photography. You weren't there, you missed it. And it was really amazing. Everybody who was anyone in street photography was in Derby, Derby, England. That's spelled Derby. In 2011. And I got to meet Joel Meyerowitz and hang out with him a bit.
Oh, my.
And he's been an early supporter of In Public. And I met Gildan, and I met the Webbs, and a lot of other people. And it was tremendously inspiring. Yeah. And I came back, and I just hit it. And I was just filled with enthusiasm. And hearing people like that talk articulately about their work made me think consciously about what I am saying and doing in my own.
Yeah. Was there early on in your photographic career when you were making moves to get started, was there like a make or break moment where you realized I really got to get moving on this?
Oh yeah, it was like when I almost got thrown out of my apartment because I came within a couple of inches of being homeless because I couldn't pay my rent. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
And one time it was, do I take this bit of change that I have and go to White Castle so I can eat something because that's all I could afford, or do I go to the photo store and buy a 25-sheet box of photo paper to print this assignment, and you buy the photo paper so you will eat next week and hope that if you drop in on some good friends around 5 o'clock, they might take pity on you and feed you.
Yeah.
That's the make or break moment. That's really the starving thing. And I'd never done it in my life. And there I was in my early 30s, but I wanted to do this so badly that I was willing to do that and to get to that point. And I think that's the make or break moment. It was really early, but it was, you know, the really thin, hungry years.
Yeah. No, that'll definitely do it. And earlier you were talking about the chaos of New York City versus sort of the slow-moving romance of London. And in a city like New York, and practicing street photography, there is potential, not that it happens all the time, but there is potential for, say, conflict, where someone catches you taking a picture and they don't want it, and then it may become a thing. And I'm wondering if that's something you've encountered in your practice over the years.
Big time, no. Actually, I've been lucky. I mean, some people are not, and and you know, but I've been lucky. I've never been beaten up. I haven't been threatened. No one has told me to delete a picture. And someone says, don't use it. Don't use that picture for whatever. And I went, okay. And you know what? If someone tells me directly, don't use that picture, I won't.
Yeah.
You know, I won't delete it in front of them. I won't give them that satisfaction.
Sure.
But I'll go home, and chances are it probably wasn't very good anyway.
Right.
And I'll not use it. I mean, if someone sees it, I mean, most of the time people have no idea I took the picture until, well after it's done, frankly, or if ever.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really that interesting looking, and I don't wear funny clothes, and I don't wear, bright colors and red shoes. I have red shoes and fancy,
Yeah.
but not when I'm out street shooting. It's just, most of us aren't really that interesting unless you are trying to sneak around and not be seen, in which case,
People will
I've said
see
this
you.
before, everybody knows you're there.
Yeah.
We all notice someone who's skulking around in the background.
Right.
But if you're just out there leaning on a tree with a camera going like this, people see you, and then they go about their business.
Right.
And if you think in your head, it's almost, that, I'm really boring. No one's looking at me. No one's paying any attention to me while I stand right here in the open. If you're projecting that, chances are it works.
Yeah.
And they're not going to look at you.
Yeah.
Some people will. And if they're looking at me, I won't take the picture because I don't find that as interesting.
Yeah. It works for some people, but for others, it definitely doesn't.
I mean, then it becomes a street portrait, and that's
Right.
That's fine too. I have no problem with that. But it's a different thing when you interact with someone before you take a picture. It's not bad. It's not less. It's nothing of the sort. It's just different, and it's not what I generally do.
Right. And how often in your practice, I mean, if there is like I guess like a percentage you could give it, working a scene versus like taking a picture or two and moving on?
I'd say most of the time I'm moving.
Yeah.
I'm moving. I mean, there's somewhere a few blocks in Soho have been like favorite stomping grounds. But Prince and Broadway, Spring and Broadway, just because of the huge crowd.
Oh, so busy.
It's insane. It's tricky to work in a crowd that thick.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of an interesting challenge. But I mean, Gus Powell always said this: New York is so generous.
Yeah.
Every time a subway train stops, a whole new cast of characters comes right up out of the street.
Oh yeah.
And and he's right. It's like if you miss a picture, so what? There'll be another one real soon. And some days, but I don't go out shooting as such very often. Not enough, frankly, because when I actually go out to do so, I will often come home with something. Yeah. But especially these days, as I'm preparing to leave, I'm sort of half winding it down. I'm just not feeling it. But not often. I mean, I'm not out there like some people every day, hitting the streets every day, banging away. There have been times when I did, but not really.
Yeah. Now, was there a point, so you made the switch from black and white to color in a considered way within the last 10 years when you got the M9 and you started doing your street work.
Right. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Was there a particular moment where it dawned on you that I've done good with black and white, but it's time to switch?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, that would be in probably late 09.
Yeah.
Late 09, early 2010,
yeah.
I think is when it was happening. I was getting lots of contact sheets and not really seeing much on them. And a little pressure and inspiration from my colleagues. Yeah. And plus, I just felt like it was time.
Yeah.
I felt it was time to do something new.
Yeah.
And I didn't look back. I didn't like blow off black and white altogether.
Oh, sure.
I still take black and white, and just knock my darkroom down in preparation for moving. But I was using it just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Do you think you'll go back to it in a considered way?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I'll in a considered way, no, but let me put it to you this way. I've used it for different things. When I had my book launch in late July, early August in Mexico at a festival there.
Right.
Because my wife and I go to Oaxaca nearly every year, once and sometimes even twice, because it means a lot to us. I'm going for 20 years. So I got involved in this festival. And so I went down this time, and usually I've taken everything from my big heavy camera bag to a Leica kit. And this time I took one digital camera and one lens and a Rolleiflex, a twin lens Rolleiflex, and I did all my street work with the digital SLR, and I did considered portraits in black and white with a Rolleiflex. And so for that kind of thing, I still like black and white a lot.
Yeah.
And the pictures I took are really beautiful, and the people who I took the pictures of really like them too.
Yeah. And shooting in color, I find it there's a lot more to look out for when you're shooting in color.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if you found that when you really started shooting in color, did your approach change at all? Did you find that you shot differently in certain ways?
Not really. Not really, but I do see different things. I'll say, oh, that's a black and white picture. It's not a color picture. Sometimes. But I won't convert. I've never liked the look. It comes from being a black and white photographer for years, a film photographer. If I take it in color, that means that's what I was seeing. That's the brain I had on. And so I was composing, I was choosing, making all these choices in color. And I don't like the look of color digital files converted to black and white. I don't care if you're running through Silver FX or whatever. It doesn't look right to me. Whereas if I shoot it on film, it's okay. It looks proper to me because the tonal registration works okay for me. I mean, when I shoot black and white, I usually have a yellow filter on the camera, so I can get a differentiation between red and green, which are the same color in black and white. Same tone. So, I mean, it's old guy stuff. But it also comes, again, out of being a commercial photographer and shooting events in black and white and color and choosing which camera you're going to pick up to shoot this or that. Right. Because that'll look good in color, and that's going to look good in black and white.
Do you teach workshops?
I have. I just gave one in San Francisco for the San Francisco Street Photography Festival. I've done some within public. There will be more, I think, when I get to London.
Now, in your time teaching, are there things that you have learned from your students?
All the time. All the time. And there was a guy in San Francisco. I mean, a woman came along. I mean, we're out saying, it said, look for the unusual. A woman came along with one arm each had these huge rolls of bubble wrap that she was taking back to the office. And she looked really funny walking along with these giant cups. And I took some pictures, but I didn't chase her because I was looking out for my students and I'm watching what they're doing because, it's not the Richard show, it's their show. But one of the guys chased after her and kept on, blessing me, followed her and got the picture, which I did not get, which is when she gets to the building and is punching this huge white object into the wall, because that's where the doorbell was. Right. And it looks really funny. It's like she's smashing it into the wall, and it was a much better picture than anything I got. Yeah. I said, I was lazy. I didn't follow her enough. So, and I'm always pleased when a student is going to get a picture that's better than what I get.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. Now, if you could go with all the wisdom and the images you've taken, if you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice as a photographer, what would that be?
Start 10 years earlier. I mean, I started at 32, which was good, but in some ways I wish I had started at 22. But, that was glib. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's a tough one. I've never had that question before. That's different. Um, Other than I would have given myself don't be easily satisfied lecture a lot earlier. You know, because editing is the hardest, and you have to be able to be willing to just be ruthless with yourself. You know, realize that sometimes a month may go by and you actually don't have very much, even though you've shot plenty of pictures.
Yeah.
You know, editing is the other half, and then go out and take more pictures. Don't just sit around.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are things that are just sort of pouring through my brain as I'm sitting here pondering this question that I've not had before. So that's good. I like that. Okay, next.
And then lastly, something that seems to be common across photographers is we occasionally hit slumps. You know,
Yeah.
There are stretches of time where it's just the images are not hitting, or you don't feel inspired to go out and shoot. And I'm curious, in your practice, for the length of time you've done it, have been doing it, how have you learned to kind of push through those dry periods?
Just take more pictures. And, you know, I always have a camera with me. I mean, it's like a religious obligation.
Yeah.
I feel naked if I don't. Even if I'd rather it not be my phone. I'd rather have the thing on the sling on my shoulder. I'll go out. Sometimes a week will go by and I won't click the shutter once. I used to say I take a picture every day, but I really don't. It's just, it's like a writer. You get writer's block. You get photographer's block.
Yeah.
You just got to force yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to, I'm not getting anything. Well, that's right. I mean, I didn't think I got much at all in 2015, but there are 4 pictures in the book from 2015. I thought it was a dead year. And when I went back at it, I realized that I did. The volume wasn't as great, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
And I mean, when I go through pictures and I'll see which ones I've marked up, some years were good and some years weren't.
Yeah.
And I think that has as much to do with what else is going on in your life.
Yeah.
If things are moving forward and doing well, you're going to be making more good pictures.
Right.
If you're having a tough time in other parts of your life, you'll also probably have trouble with your photography in that period. Sometimes, some people, it helps them work through it. It probably has for me as well.
Yeah.
But I don't have a straight answer other than you just got to, take more pictures and keep doing it. And the one thing that is the good thing about digital, yes, the gear keeps upgrading, unlike a film camera where I have a camera made in 1975 that still works perfectly well if I have filming. It doesn't cost anything when you click the shutter.
Right.
It costs you nothing. And that's a good thing, especially when you're feeling down. And, if you had to do that and spend money every time you click shutter, then you'd be really paralyzed.
Right.
And you work through it. And if nothing else, what you'll get is pictures that reflect your mood. I mean, did you see any of the iterations of the big Gary Winogrand show?
I'd seen pieces on it online. I wasn't here for it in person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was over.
I saw it in a couple of places, and you can tell when he was young and full of himself and really going. And then toward the end, when he's sick, he either knew or didn't know that he was sick, and he was in L.A. and not feeling it and out. And you know what the pictures look like? They look like someone who's not happy, who's pretty miserable, and probably not well. I mean, it's like not specifically in the pictures, but as an aggregate.
Right.
I think that's what's going to show. There may not be any great pictures in a certain period,
right,
but what's going on in your life is going to be reflected in what's in those pictures.
Right.
So if you're aimless, you don't know what you're doing, you take the pictures, it'll help you figure out what was going on in your life later.
Yeah.
But then if things pick up and you start feeling better, well, you're going to find that the picture's going to look different.
Yeah. I think that's all very true. And this has been great. The book looks great.
Thank you, Joey.
And I wish you a lot of luck with your move.
Thanks. It's a big job, but as you well know, you just do it. It gets done.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting any great pictures right now because my mind is elsewhere.
Yeah. No, well, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Right. So thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching. For more on Richard's work, you can go to his website, richardbramphoto.com. And for more on Peanut Press, you can go to peanutpressbooks.com. All of those links will be in the description below. And our music is graciously provided by Quantum Jazz. Thanks so much, and see you next time.